Caught me in the midst of finishing my tea. Okay, I am Kevin Griffin, and it is August 5th, 2025, 10:05 here in Northern California, and beautiful weather we've been having of late, while much of the rest of the world seems to be experiencing bad things. So, I thank you all for showing up and giving my life purpose. Um, we are going to meditate. At least that's the plan. You can do whatever you want, but the idea is that we're going to meditate for 20 minutes and then a little talking from me. So yeah, I'll give some guidance on the meditation to get folks started. Of course, guzzling tea requires the reverse to happen. So excuse me. Okay, one, two, three, meditate. No, I'm sorry. Breathing in and breathing out. So just settling into your posture. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze, turning the attention inward. First, just to the physical experience, the experience of being in a body. It can be helpful to do a little body scan. Just move the attention around the body, explore some of the different sensations. This simple exercise is actually a doorway into insight, seeing that the body is not one thing, that there are different sensations in different areas of the body, is a reminder that the body is not a single object. Feeling the continuous flow of energy is a reminder that the body is not static, it's always in flux. And seeing that all of this is happening without your will or effort involved is a reminder that you don't own or control your body. We don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about these ideas. It's really enough just to watch and to know that these insights are true, and then to be present with the experience of the body in this moment. We can use the breath as an anchor, even as it flows as well in constant motion, breathing in, breathing out. And even as you direct the attention towards the physical experience, you might also be drawn to or become aware of a emotional feeling experience. Entering into meditation can be pleasant, can also be unpleasant, depending on our mind states and other factors. A part of our practice is to open to accept whatever feelings are arising as we breathe, as we sit, as we let go of thinking, mental excursions. One way of understanding the two experiences of body and feeling is as energies. They're often quite intertwined. Again, we breathe with, open to, and allow these energies to move through body, to move through the feeling realm. There can be a tendency for the mind to take over, to think, for thinking to take over from this direct experience of body and feeling. Perhaps there's some subtle aversion or anxiety about just being present, being in the body. And thinking is one of our prime forms of escape, allowing us to step away from the body, from the feeling realm, this realm that is not so much under control, that's sometimes chaotic, unformed. Thinking allows us to create an illusion of control, structure, where in fact the mind and body are not under control, not structured in this orderly sense. Part of our practice is to learn to hold the chaos of mind and body without running, without fear, that we're okay. It's okay to not be in control. It's okay to let go. There's something deeper that holds us, protects us, awareness itself. Right. Lovely what a few quiet minutes can do. And I don't know. I might need to apologize for that guided meditation. I don't know. It was kind of interesting. Things just. I don't at all want to suggest that like things come through me, but things come up for me, and I just kind of follow them. And that was a bit unusual because I sort of started with insight, which is different. But you know. I gave up on using a formula in guiding meditation some years ago. And partly it's because of this group, because I teach every week and I don't want to just do the same thing every time. And so I just kind of like, what am I feeling right now? And um, it would actually be interesting to collect them all anyway. Um, and first of all, I really want to thank Monica for taking care of the class last week. Thank you, dear. That was very good of you. That we were traveling that day from Helsinki to San Francisco, as one does, and yeah, it just wound up. That was the day, and we were in flight at the time of the class. Um, yeah, and as I said, in 2 weeks I think I'm going to be in Indiana that day, and I don't know where I'll be the week after that, but it's going to be like coming from hotels or something. But it's all fine, right? Just part of life, and it's kind of fun to just show up here with you guys. And I know there were a couple of weeks when it was 8 o'clock at night in Stockholm when I was teaching in July, and that was different for me. And so I've mentioned this before, but I listen a lot to Ajahn Amaro, the English Thai forest uh, teacher in the kind of Ajahn Chah tradition. I'm going to put his name into the chat. Uh, they've they started putting his talks into a podcast, and I just listen to them on Spotify. And and so a lot of times, I mean, frankly, it's like just when I'm in the car, I'll just like listen to Ajahn Amaro. And there's a series where he goes through this book, The Island. I don't know how much of the book he does because it's a really long book. It's like over 300 pages. Um, and it's the subtitle of the book is An Anthology of the Buddha's Teachings on Nibbana, which is Pali for Nirvana. And it's by Ajahn Pasanno and Ajahn Amaro. But the book is more or less divided into their own sections. Um, you know, and anyway, he was a lot of the book, most of it is quotes, and then fairly short commentary on the quotations, a lot of them from the suttas. But this one is from uh, a contemporary American Buddhist monk who is, these days they call him Ajahn Thanissaro. He identifies himself as Thanissaro Bhikkhu. For a long time, I knew him as Tan Jeff. He is the abbot of the Metta Monastery outside of San Diego, and he's a revered translator of the Pali Canon. Um, Many of the translations on uh, Access to Insight, the website, are his translations. And he has a somewhat unique style of translating the Pali scriptures. So this is a lengthy quote from him, and I'm going to interrupt reading it at times to make my own commentary. And it's about uh, dependent origination, which many of you have encountered. One of the more uh, complicated and sort of difficult teachings in Buddhism that essentially describes how is it that we get into this problem of suffering, and it breaks it down into 12 steps, coincidentally, nothing like the 12 steps of AA. Um, and so this is particularly although this is about that, it's really in my mind as I read this, it's more about how does karma happen? And people often have these questions about karma, like how does karma work? Um, okay, so he says, again, this is Thanissaro Bhikkhu. The Buddha expressed that conditionality in a simple looking formula. So that conditionality is the uh, um, simple way of describing. I got through the first sentence, describing dependent origination, which is dependent origination says when there is this, then there is that. When there is not this, then there is not that. So it's just saying like things are connected, right? When there is alcohol, there is getting drunk. When there is no alcohol, there is no getting drunk. Okay, there we go. Brought it back to recovery. Okay, so he's got this is the how Thanissaro says that conditionality in the formula for it. One, when this is, that is. Two, from the arising of this comes the arising of that. Three, when this isn't, that isn't. Four, from the stopping of this comes the stopping of that. So even though it's in this very kind of stilted language, it's kind of, just stuff. Things have causes, and things come and things go. Okay. He says, there are many possible ways of interpreting this formula, but only one does justice both to the way the formula is worded and to the complex, fluid manner in which specific examples of causal relationships are described in the canon. So again, I want you to point to that. When you're talking about causal relationships, we're talking about the law of karma, right? How are things caused? Everything, for every cause, there is an effect, cause and effect. So, okay, so this is the way that he says of interpreting this formula. And we're going to go back to the formula, don't worry. That way is to view the formula as the interplay of two causal principles, one linear and the other synchronic, that combines to form a nonlinear pattern. So we're going to go slow on this, okay? The linear principle, taking 2 and 4 as a pair, and I'm going to go back and read them, but connects events rather than objects over time. Okay? So events as opposed to objects over time. So 2 is from the arising of this comes the arising of that. So that's connecting events, right? And 4 is from the stopping of this comes the stopping of that. Again, connecting events. You can see it's the ing, the ing, there's stuff happening. So that's called the linear principle. Okay. Things happen in a line. The synchronic principle, 1 and 3, connects objects and events in the present moment. Aha. 1, when this is, that is. So that's just right now. 4 and 3, when this isn't, that isn't. So again, this is the synchronic principle. It's about the present moment. So you have these two things, these two principles that are interacting. You're going to see why this is important, I think, as we get through it, that in causality. So there are basically two ways that causality happen. Through time, like something happened before, and there's an effect of it arising now. And then Now I'm doing something in this moment that's then going to have an effect on the future. The two principles intersect so that any given event is influenced by two sets of conditions, input acting from the past and input acting from the present. Although each principle seems simple, the fact that they interact makes their consequences very complex. This is why the Buddha says, don't try to like figure out karma. I mean, did you ever try to figure out like why you got sober and those other 100 million people didn't? It's really complicated. Well, people try to come up with solutions. Well, God did it, whatever. But causality, it's complicated. To begin with, every act has repercussions in the present moment, together with reverberations extending into the future. Right? So you do something now, there's an effect, but then, you know, maybe it's going to have some effect in the future. Depending on the intensity of the act, these reverberations can last for a very short or a very long time. Thus, every event takes place in a context determined by the combined effects of past events coming from a wide range in time, together with the effects of present acts. These effects can intensify one another. So something happened in the past, and now you're reacting to it, and you're blowing it up. Can coexist with little interaction, or can cancel one another out. Like I used to drink, but I don't anymore. Somebody puts a drink in front of me now, I don't pick it up, right? Even though there was this karmic, behavior for many years where that was just like, so that's canceling it out. If that makes sense. Thus, even though it is possible to predict that a certain type of act will tend to give a certain type of result, for example, acting on anger will lead to pain, there is no way to predict when and where that result will make itself felt. So, despite the density of this, I think it really does help to explain why things are so unpredictable, basically, and why I did the right thing and then it didn't work out, or I did the wrong thing and I got away with it. Well, it's because of the complexity of this. The complexity of the system is further enhanced by the fact that both causal principles meet at the mind, excuse me. Through its views and intentions, the mind takes a causal role in keeping both principles in action. Through its sensory powers, it is affected by the results of the causes it has set in motion. This creates the possibility for the causal principles to feed back into themselves as the mind reacts to the results of its own actions. Whew, boy, oh boy. The mind reacts to the results of its own actions. Have you ever done that? You ever had a thought and then got upset and then started to panic? Or these reactions can take the form of positive feedback loops, like when you pay attention to the breath over and over and the mind gets deeper and then states of samadhi arise, intensifying the original input and its results, much like the howl in a speaker placed next to the microphone feeding into it. They can also create negative feedback loops, counteracting the original input, much like the action of a thermostat that turns off a heater when the temperature in a room is too high and turns it on again when it gets too low. I don't really understand that one. I don't know why that doesn't click with my brain. Because the results of actions can be immediate and the mind can then react to them immediately, these feedback loops can at times quickly spin out of control. At other times, they may act as skillful checks on one's behavior. For example, a man, he says, may act out of anger, which gives him an immediate sense of dis-ease, to which he may react with further anger, thus creating a snowballing effect, right? On the other hand, he may come to understand that the anger is causing his disease and so immediately does what he can to stop it. However, there can also be times when the results of his past actions may obscure the disease he is causing himself in the present so that he does not immediately react to it one way or another. So just, again, to bring it back to addiction, what he just described is being in denial. There can be times when the results of the past actions may obscure the disease one is causing oneself in the present, so that one does not immediately react to it one way or another. In this way, the combination of two causal principles, influences from the past interacting with those in the immediate present, accounts for the complexity of causal relationships as they function on the level of immediate experience. Okay. There's something he gets to that I'm trying to get to. There's not that much more. I'll try to find it. However, the combination of the two principles also opens the possibility of finding a systematic way to break the causal web. If causes and effects were entirely linear, the cosmos would be totally deterministic. This is what I wanted to get to. If causes and effects were entirely linear, in other words, if there were no synchronic, if there were nothing you can do in the present moment to affect causes, if everything was just unfolding, the cosmos would be totally deterministic. And this is one of the views, one of the Buddha thinks the Buddha called wrong view, which is that everything is predetermined. And nothing could be done to escape the machinations of the causal process. If they were entirely synchronic, there would be no relationship from one moment to the next, and all events would be arbitrary. Like if you did something and it had no impact on the future, if not things that the fact that you went to school didn't like give you a degree, it just meant you were at school for a while. The web could break down totally or reform spontaneously for no reason at all. However, with the two modes working together, one can learn from causal patterns observed from the past and apply one's insights to disentangling the same causal patterns acting in the present. If one's insights are true, one can then gain freedom from those patterns. For this reason, the principle of this-that conditionality provides an ideal foundation, both theoretical and practical, for a doctrine of release. I'm going to go over this, and as a teacher, the Buddha took full advantage of its implications, using it in such a way that it accounts not only for the presentation and content of his teachings, but also for their organization, their function, and their utility. It even accounts for the need for the teachings and for the fact that the Buddha was able to teach them in the first place. So this calls to mind. So just to let you know, if you want to look this up, this is from Thanissaro Bhikkhu from his book, The Wings to Awakening, pages 10 to 12. I'll put his name in since that's the part that might be. Have I got that right? I think so. And the book is The Wings to Awakening. It's on pages 10 to 12. So this is something that comes up where the Buddha says, if it weren't possible to have freedom to attain enlightenment or end suffering, I wouldn't teach it. And so he's saying that this thing works. And Thanissaro here is explaining how it works. And it's quite, I mean, this is maybe more theoretical than people come to this class for. I'm not generally trying to do sort of the educational model of Dharma teaching. But I think it sometimes we can get caught up in this questioning about how does this work? Why does it work? Does it really work? And this idea that, and it's a critical idea that there are these two ways, I will just say, that karma works. It comes from the past and it works in the present moment. And there's somewhere else that I've read Thanissaro himself saying the only time you can affect karma or your karma is in the present moment. So it's the synchronic is the vital part. We have no control over the linear, the stuff from the past, right? The past is gone. But in this moment, we have an opportunity to affect it. But the Buddha understood, and that's what he's saying is like very, for me, like I'd have to go through some of the final sentences there to like really parse out exactly what he's talking about. But, the Buddha gives us this Eightfold Path, right? And the Eightfold Path is meant to utilize these two forms of karma to create a movement, right intention, right, which is about moving forward, and to be mindful of it, right, mindfulness, and to apply effort in the present moment to allow a transformation to happen, to allow letting go to happen, to allow freedom to happen. If we want to come back to recovery, we can see that these two forms of causality or karma are what put together in some way that we may not be able to figure out all the elements of it, came together in some way for us to let go of our addictive behavior. I know that, for years I was like, I wasn't just like drinking and taking all the drugs I could possibly take all the time. There was always this kind of interplay of like trying to stop, trying to control it. Oh, maybe that's the trying to, meditate my way out of my problems, to get therapy to solve my problems. And so there were all these linear causes that were building up. And then there was the moment of making a decision or of letting go. It's, again, very hard for us to characterize what happens in that moment. But then that requires both of these forms of causality in an ongoing way, right? When we say one day at a time, we are saying, I need to continue to create these wholesome behaviors, I'll say, and including mental states, so that linear work needs to continue, and it happens in each day, in each moment, and so it's an ongoing process, and so that's how recovery happens. It's how spiritual growth happens through these two things, and so I guess what else can we take from this? One thing we can take is acceptance, right? Acceptance of what's arriving in this moment, or what's arising in this moment, to use that language. That's coming because of past karma, the linear. And yet we know that just accepting and not responding or acting is just a passive way of really giving up or not taking responsibility. So acceptance is what our relationship to the linear, and then responsibility is our response to the synchronic. Our responsibility in this moment is to be present, to bring wisdom, to bring loving kindness, to act skillfully. And so there's these two forms of karma, of causality. We have a relationship to them. And our relationship is very important, right? Because when we can't accept, then that creates a disturbance in the mind, in that negative feedback loop that he's talking about. Or when we don't take responsibility, then we're just, oh, well, I'm just an alcoholic. What can I do? Or, I'm just, my life is a mess, so there's nothing I can do about it. And 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 I will say that in my pre-sober days, when I thought I was spiritual, I mean, I guess whatever, I would, and I have this tendency to give up. You know, I'm not a persistent type of person, so letting go. But I've learned in sobriety to to take more responsibility. But there was a time when it'd be like, oh well, that didn't work out. I tried, and it would be like I tried once. Like, no, you got to try more than once. You don't just go like, oh, forget it. Like, no point. Um, and so I'm familiar with that failing of just accepting everything, a false acceptance. Um, and then, but then I see people who don't have, I would say, have insufficient acceptance and are out of balance in terms of responsibility, right? So that's kind of a code thing, if I can say that, for my dear codependents out there that are so kind to me and take care of me. So I don't want to discourage you from that, but just say like, oh, I have to fix it, I have to control it, I have to take care of everything, and also like just fighting with reality. Like, no, like that train has left the station, the linear swept you away. There's no opportunity to fix that. Like, you need to move on to the next thing. So we can see, I'm actually glad that this came together. I didn't know what I was going to do with this reading. I just knew that when I read it, it made a lot of impact on me. And I had listened to Ajahn Amaro reading it actually and discussing it. And then I had found it in my own reading, stumbled on it, and I was like, oh, this is really good. But anyway, here I am, like, this is my commentary on my Dharma talk, just in case you were wondering. Kevin, self-critique. That's a pretty good talk. Save that one. I'll put a check on that. No, but this is why it's really interesting. You read something like that and it can seem like, oh, well, that's interesting, but like, does it really apply to my life? But I think when we take it apart in this way, we can see that it does broad-ranging implications and value. So just to kind of summarize, um, and maybe leave everybody with an idea they might take forward. We have this idea of linear causality, the past events bring sort of arising in this moment, past causes, and then we have synchronic causality, what we can do and what's happening in this moment, and that for us, our relationship to these two is a balance between acceptance and responsibility, or we could say, in other terms, letting go and making effort, right effort. So thank you for listening, and that was fun. And we have a few minutes left, and be happy to hear any comments or questions. Um, I was going to ask, Monica, can you find did you put the Tri-State Dharma retreat in there?
I did. I
Okay,
did.
I was just looking for it. Sorry.
Southern Dharma, I think, is full. Is that right?
Yeah, they're both full, but I can tell you
Always. Yeah.
there's always somebody who doesn't show up at the last minute. And if you ever wanted to come on one of these retreats, I would just sign up and like have your bag ready, like, and be ready to get. No, seriously, because it's often like the day before or even sometimes the day of. I would just like go there and show up and be like, oh, oh, I thought you there was a spot for me. Oh, well, can I camp out? You know. and you'll be fine. Deborah, hi.
Good
Oh,
morning. Thank you for coming back with a burst of energy.
Uh,
Um, I just I went on vacation. I got COVID.
oh,
I'm coming
sorry.
back with a burst of energy,
Mm,
and I needed to hear about taking responsibility.
mm.
And so I'm going to take that to heart and muse on it for a few hours, and I'll let you know what happens with that. So
Okay,
thank you very
excellent.
much. I needed that.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Deborah. Sorry about the COVID.
Oh, easy.
Oh, yeah. Charlotte, hello.
Hi. Hey, I am wondering how you recommend I use the list of names. I sent an email to myself, but I don't know that that's gonna show up.
The list of names,
Um, Monica put it in the chat.
right? The Google Doc that has different that people sign up on. Is that what you mean?
Uh-huh. Yes.
The idea with that, it originated with the idea that people might, I mean, specifically, people might ask others for some help, some support in recovery, much as we do in the 12-step world, right? Like if um, look on there and there's somebody who either you've seen them on here or you've read their name on there and they say something about themselves and you're like, oh, this person, might be able to help me or I might be able to help them or they just seem like an interesting person. Um, that's that's kind of the purpose of it is just to allow people to connect outside of the this.
But my it's probably a computer question, so
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know how to save it to look at it later or
Okay.
to add my name to
We'll turn this over to Monica, who is the keeper of the technology on this in this group. And why don't you uh, just put your email in the chat, and Monica will email you and help guide you through it
it. Okay,
as I
thank you both.
volunteer her for a while.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Charlotte. Um, well, anything else? All right. Well, I do want to remind you that I'm going to be doing Spirit Rock this Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So,
is it spirit?
what?
Must have missed that.
Yeah, yeah. This week is the second. I think it is, right?
I'm sorry.
They told me I was going to be there. Yeah, that's 6 p.m. Pacific time. And you can just go to the Spirit Rock website. It's easy to find. And I'm gonna
Sorry about that, everyone.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do something about step 8 because I've been going through the steps this year. So I don't know what that'll be. And Jeff, for our closing comment.
Yeah, closing and going broke at the same time.
Oh, really?
You'll be pleased to know that I am now mobile, so you may be seeing me
Oh,
more of me
good.
in person.
Your
Um,
hip is recovering.
yeah, well, my robot hip is actually working, so
Yeah,
that's that.
yeah,
Very good to see you. Great talk. I just wanted to throw. I'm a simple-minded person.
yeah. Sure.
No, no, believe me. I have come to the
I don't
realization.
believe you.
I've come to the realization that I am never the smartest person in the room, even
Well,
when I'm in the room by myself. Um, but two things about causality that, for my simple purposes, I keep remembering and repeating. The first is nobody gets away with anything.
uh, that's Ruth
No,
Dennison. You don't get away
yeah,
with nothing, darling.
yeah. And the second is acting well improves the possibility of things going well.
I love that. That's beautiful.
That's from Ajahn Amaro. I had the
Yeah,
great
yeah.
privilege of visiting him in England, and on this topic. He said, let me make it simple for you, dopus, you know. So, he's a great man. I'm happy that you've given up riding around listening to death metal and started to
Yeah.
try to concentrate.
Well, I just go between the two, you don't want to
Yeah,
get,
right.
you don't want to
It's a
get too
toggle.
mellow, It's not,
Always good to see you. Thanks for
yeah,
your
you
time.
too, Jeff. I will be at the monastery next Tuesday. So, right.
I might be there too.
Okay. Roll it in with
That's not a threat. That's a hoped for outcome.
and who knows, you could be the smartest person in the room. Maybe you have a brain transplant before then. All right. All right. Nice to see everybody lost and very lost. So thank you all for showing up, and it's always a delight. And well, maybe not always, but usually, almost always.
For the most part.
I can't think of a time when it wasn't a delight. So anyway, I will be back next Tuesday, God willing, and we'll see what the status of the world is at that time. So,
Would that
Glad to have
indicate
you
a
back.
failure of memory?
Thank you, Kevin.
but, all
Thanks,
right, you
Kevin.
guys. All right.
Thanks, Kevin.
I like it when everybody says goodbye. It's nice.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Kevin.
Thanks,
Welcome
Kevin.
back.
Yeah.
See you around, dude.
Thank you, Kevin.
What's the thing about see you around if you're not square or something like that? I don't know. Okay,
We
3,
are so old.
2.
That is so 1958.
Yeah. Oh well, there you go.
Don't lost your fun.
Bye bye.